Are we live? Okay. Good morning and welcome to the morning session of the asteroid deflection demonstrations idea synthesis discussion. We've got not a full crowd this morning in the house, not as much as we had yesterday afternoon, but hopefully folks will trickle in as we get started here. Again, my name is Dan Masnick from NASA Langley Research Center. My co-chair here is Paul Abel from Johnson Space Center. Paul's actually filling in for Pat Troutman back at Langley, who had to go home for some family matters. Pat may be actually on the line this morning to participate in the discussion as well. So what we had yesterday, just a recap, and I'm going to step up to the podium in just a few minutes to kind of facilitate the discussion here this morning. We had 13 presentations that were all very, very well done, and again, I appreciate the presenters adhering to the time constraints. I think the session went very smoothly. What I did last night was I kind of pulled together a summary that we'll be using in the plenary session, and I kind of view this as kind of a working session. We'll edit charts real time because that plenary happens at 10:15, I believe. I think we have a 15-minute break. So we'll go, a few minutes before 10, probably a few minutes to clean up charts if I need to at the end. But we've got the whole 2 hours here for discussion. If we finish early and we have nothing more to say and nothing more to contribute, then we'll have a little bit of free time before the plenary session. So first of all, I guess maybe I can ask, is Pat Troutman on the line? Can he respond? No. Oh, we don't have any telecon? Did not realize that. Okay, so we're going to go modern old-fashioned, and if they're, besides using the Twitter feed that Jonathan Bowie is monitoring, I will have my cell phone for a text message if there's anything that needs to be said this morning from outside. So please use the hashtag #ProtectPlanet on Twitter, and I think is there a link on the website too? On the Ustream, there's a communications method on the Ustream. If you don't have a Twitter, there's a chat function there. So you can use either of those, and you can get there by going to www.nasa.gov asteroid workshop, all one word. Okay? So, Paul, do you have any overall general comments from yesterday's session?
No, I thought it was a very good session, very dynamic, good feedback, and so hopefully we'll have a little bit further discussion, round out the charts, and then continue forward.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and step up to the podium, and we've got microphones in the room, so please use those if we have comments. I've got a pretty loud voice, but definitely need to be by the microphone so the folks online can hear. So what I'd like to do, I'm going to not go into slideshow mode. Well, I'll go to slideshow mode to start, but then we'll probably pop out of there. a subsequent kinetic impact of an incoming large asteroid, use the thrust to push an asteroid. I should probably say and. I'll fix up some grammar, just still miss some things. That's basically ion beam deflection. I might put that, let me pop out and do it right now, because otherwise we'll forget. And again, if folks do see any thing that's kind of a working session, please let me know, we can correct it. I know there's two different typical ion beam shepherding and ion beam deflection. I think we've used ion beam deflection for the majority of it. Low-cost kinetic impactor, and again, this is probably only applicable at the end of the Pick Up a Rock mission approach. Enhanced gravity tracking with local mass augmentation, using solar energy for vaporizing material for impulsive propulsion. Looking at a swarm of small satellites attached to the asteroid to despin and redirect it. That was one of the presentations we had yesterday. And any applicable proposals spanning all areas of the mission envelope that support asteroid deflection. So that's kind of a rewording there. Go ahead, Rob. Yeah, come on up.
Oh, okay. It's ion beam, not ion beam.
Oh, thank you. Can someone please go get me a cup of coffee this morning?
I want to see an ion beam. I'm not keen on impulsive propulsion. It's a steady state.
Okay.
Impulsive to me implies,
How about
high
just for
thrust.
deflection?
Yeah, I would say steady state deflection.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe that's not good either.
Low thrust maybe.
Yeah, low thrust sounds good.
Okay.
Deflection.
Yeah.
Why don't you say deflection?
I want to imply that it's going to take a period of time.
Yeah, but steady state, I think, is the wrong information.
Continuous deflection.
Okay. How about low thrust? Because that's what you are going to end up generating, unless we have the most enormous solar arrays imaginable.
Well, then that brings a point to the last chart. You had low thrust concepts, and then you had gravity tractor. Are you trying to imply gravity tractor is extremely low thrust? Because that is a good implication there, but you had those two broken out. You see what
On the
I'm saying?
previous chart?
Yeah.
Well, that came from headquarters.
There you go then.
So I'm not going to mess with that chart. That's how literally that's what the RFI said. So, yes, it was.
All low thrust, so I don't think
Low thrust really conveys much, just my personal
not
opinion.
impactors
Yeah, not kinetic
Okay,
impactors.
Fair enough.
or nuclear.
Or nuclear, so,
Nuclear is not on there.
well,
The solar is not low thrust the way the gravitational practice.
yeah, there's certain,
But you could have millions of newtons coming off your vaporized asteroid and still have very low acceleration.
yeah. How about, let's just say for deflection? Rob, is that okay?
Say again?
Brian's making the good point is, there's different classes of low thrust.
Right.
And in order to not go into that ballywick,
That's fine.
okay. If someone thinks of a better word to qualify that, we can always go back. Okay, no, that's good. I'm going to end up saving here as we go. So, and I know all the presenters aren't here this morning, but what we tried to do last night was, we were asked to provide just a summary of the sessions, and so I tried to capture the salient main point of each presentation. If the presenters are here, we'll flip through these real quick, and you look at them and comment. And I don't know that I want to go ahead and read these, but basically the first three were specific companies' approaches to the entire mission. Basically, each of them advocating the use of their bus or some derivative of their bus or some parts that could be made up. So I know, let's see, who's in the room here? Howard's in the room. Mike is not, oh, Andy's here. Well, yeah, thank you, Andy. Does that look all right?
Which are you referring to?
The, right here.
But
You just came in, basically for the plenary session, they want a very brief synopsis, a one sentence, two sentence summary of each presentation.
okay, well, if we talked about something that was beyond what was actually written, do you want to include that too, or do you just what was written in the paper?
Yeah, well,
Because I did mention that we have our system is adaptable to doing ion beam as well, because we have electric thrusters.
okay, no, that's a good
We
point.
can push in both directions.
Yeah, and you kind of mentioned electrostatic tractoring, but there really wasn't a
I didn't say
discussion
very
about
much
that.
about that, yeah.
And so actually,
I did mention that Coulomb forces are larger than the gravitational forces, so if you put a charge on the thing, on the body,
Right.
you could manipulate it. And we also in the satellite business, charge control on a spacecraft is very important, so we'd be applying any background there to the electrostatic tractoring. So that's all I said about
And you
that.
can push instead.
Yeah, you can push, yeah. And yeah, that's true. The electrostatic tractoring is push as well as pull, and gravity tractoring is pull only, and ion beam is push only. So physical principles there.
right, I don't know if we need to get down to that
No, you don't
level of
need,
detail.
might want to keep that in the back here.
So I'll just add the sentence there about ion beam deflection could be accommodated,
Yeah, and.
or could be performed, maybe a better word.
Yeah, could be performed. You might want to test it with our system before we did the gravity tractoring, for example. That's
Right.
what I said yesterday.
Okay,
You want
to
typos?
test, how about to test and/or perform?
Right.
Okay,
The other thing that I said at the end of this session too is that you can also combine, I think something to think about is combining techniques.
I've
Being
got
able-
that
You got
later.
that also?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Okay, then I think I'm done.
okay.
You want typos?
Sure, is there a typo?
Howard, can you go to the mic? so
Yeah,
people-
go up
Please, thank you.
Yeah, Northrop is ROP, not RUP.
Oh, thank you.
Well, the Astro Ray is the solar ray. The ray. That's okay. Yeah, it's,
Yeah, I mean, do you want me to put parenthetically derived from astromast?
hey, that would be great.
Okay,
Thank
yeah,
you.
I had that in there originally, and then I thought, probably good enough. But if folks are, obviously more familiar with that.
And it's MESH? Mesh. Astro Mesh.
Astro Mesh, thank you.
There you go.
Got it.
Right, wow.
Okay. All right. All right, the next slide, Bongui is here. Can take a look at that. Jeff Landis is not, so we can all look at it and see if I summarized it sufficiently there. Or if he is there, we can't hear him, so if he's online, I guess maybe he can tweet in or chat in.
Okay,
Does it look all right?
yeah, we're now looking at the next one.
Okay, and again, this is, they've got the abstracts, they got the presentations, this is just a synopsis of the agenda. And Tim, you're here, so.
Yeah, looks good.
Okay, and again, I thought those were two very good, interesting ideas. Since we don't know a lot about 2000 S3344, it's hard to make definitive decisions, but if it is a carbonaceous object, it certainly is a very accessible source of resources as well as a human mission target. Whether or not bringing that close to the Earth's vicinity because of its size, that may start to, invoke some consternation by folks.
It crosses over the Earth on that trajectory.
Yeah, that's just the issue again with the redirect mission. A big driver was to keep it small so that it was not a threat of any sort of entry. So that might start to violate that. Go ahead, Brian.
I want to comment on the Jeff Landis summary. It calls the L4 and L5 points stable, but in fact they are not stable because when you introduce the perturbation, the periodic forcing function of the sun, the solar tidal influence in the rotating reference frame, you find that a particle placed exactly at one of those points will be driven out within about 6 months.
Yeah, so you want to say quasi-stable in
Well,
that?
I mean, I don't recall if
just-
he exactly used the word stable, maybe he did.
He did.
How
about
In any
that?
event, it's, yeah.
With active.
Yeah, I mean, right, if you have active control, you can keep things there indefinitely.
Right, and
With very little thrust.
right, and minimally compared to the unstable Lagrange, the truly unstable
Right,
Lagrange
compared to
points.
L1,
L1, L2.
2, and 3.
Yeah, I thought 4 and 5 were stable orbiting the point. I mean, I've seen several things on this, so I'd like to, I mean, 1, 2, and 3 are in a saddle point, yeah, but 4 and 5 are unstable if you look at just the potential well, but there's been numerous models that have these objects orbiting the point.
Combine the two, the sun, moon, earth, moon. Two-
Right, right, I mean, putting it at the point is not as good as some orbits, that is true. But none of the orbits are stable in the long term.
No, that's not true. Simulations show asteroids.
Can you go to the mic if you're going to join in the conversation so people online can hear?
Yeah, because I've heard both stories on this, so.
The only thing is, for asteroids, as an example, there are simulations that demonstrate that asteroids, primordial asteroids, could be in the vicinity of the Lagrange, the triangular Lagrange points, on the order of the age of the solar system. Not, no, for the Earth. Yeah,
So that's pretty
Renu
stable.
Mahaltra, for instance. So they are stable, but
Hey, Dan?
Yeah, he's talking about Earth Moon here.
Then I misunderstood.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can we probably, this is going down in the weeds a little
Yeah.
bit too much, I think, for this conversation, so let's try and keep it to the point at hand.
Yep.
I recommend potentially stable L4, L5 points, leave it at that.
I would just.
Let's just leave it at that.
Leave it at that,
Okay.
and don't worry about the details.
Question
Oh.
on order. Are you going to?
Go to the microphone, please.
Yeah, just so everybody can hear.
As you're going through these, are you sort of going to collect themes that came up over and over? Like one theme that we heard was in orbit, doing gravity tracking in the velocity vector was the preferred approach. I think 3 speakers said that.
Okay, yeah, this is just a summary. What we're going to do is, we've got some additional slides that we can address that if I didn't call it out already. I think that actually is a point I didn't capture, that we didn't capture. Okay, can we move on to the next slide?
No,
Stan?
one more on Jeff Landis's.
Uh-huh.
The defense against is kind of vague. You might want to say exactly how it would defend. I think his intent was to drive it into an incoming asteroid, but just as it stands, it doesn't really capture the key point.
Is that good
So-
enough?
Good enough for me.
Okay. Yeah, again, it's not clear, it's basically what I call the Superman effect, putting Superman in front of the train. Can Superman just stand there, or does he have to get a head of steam up? It all depends, so it depends on the target and the availability of trajectories. So I think that's probably good enough. Josh said he was going to run a little bit late. We can come back and let him look at that. Yeah, because I just had breakfast with him, and he's not in the room. Okay, and then John Brophy, I think John had to leave as well. Yeah. So Brian, maybe you can look at that real quick. It is beam here. I was awake last night when I was, for the most part.
Well, provide more total impulse, straight total if you did it. Yeah.
Okay.
Wow.
I think I cut that out of one of his slides, so. All right, and Scott, Scott's not here, right? No. So I try to summarize. Folks in the audience can look at that real quick and see if did it okay. And I know Paul looked at these last night, so but more eyes are always good. That's at least what was advocated in his paper, in his presentation. Okay, so is Rob here? Oh, we lost Rob. text is a little bit smaller here, and can kind of look through these. Rob, yours is kind of short and sweet. I thought it captured it all, but if you want to add anything to it.
Brevity is good.
And, oh, there's a little black, there's a little, just change text color before I forget. Steve, and then Jonathan, is Jonathan here? No, oh, Jonathan was virtual, thank you. But I think I captured in Jonathan's all of the different spacecraft mechanisms that he addressed.
So, regarding on the I think it was the second slide, you had the remark that the kinetic impactor would only be relevant for the following the pick up a boulder approach, which gets to the question that I brought up yesterday. I think somebody else brought up yesterday as well, is whether or not the Grand Challenge is a large program that includes the asteroid retrieval mission as an element.
Right.
Or, as the RFI is written right now, one might unfortunately get the sort of cynical perspective that the Grand Challenge is just a vehicle for the asteroid retrieval mission. So, and you look at the RFI, the implication is that the only way to do a deflection demonstration under this program is with the ARV.
Yeah, so Steve, I think the intent was to use the asteroid redirect mission. So again, if everybody remembers how it's laid out, we have the asteroid initiative, this big nebulous thing, and inside of that is the asteroid redirect mission, which includes both the crew and the robotic mission as well as the observation program. And then we've got the Grand Challenge, which includes basically planetary defense or mitigation approaches is what it's usually put on there, stakeholder stuff, and then also is the observation program, and what's the fourth thing on the bottom? There's one thing in the middle, but so it's the overlap. So originally, as the asteroid initiative was formulated, the planetary defense part of it wasn't explicitly called out at that time. So, but the intent with the RFI release was to utilize the asteroid redirect robotic mission as a demonstration platform for planetary defense. That being said, certainly it's kept under the Grand Challenge, so it's not just...
So this call for ideas is less related to the Grand Challenge and more related to the asteroid redirect mission.
For planetary defense. So
I have to say, I think that's an unfortunate narrowing of the scope of the call for ideas, which I noticed as soon as I read this several months ago.
Right.
And I think that as chairs, you have some opportunity to, whether it's as ancillary information, to enlarge the scope of the summary,
right,
to capture things like this. So, for instance, in the next slide, you say that the low-cost kinetic impactor demonstration is really only applicable at the end of the pick up a rock mission. I guess strictly reading the wording of the RFI, that's true, but I don't think it's true in a larger sense of the Grand Challenge. So I think that somehow that should be captured.
And let's go ahead and capture it here.
I think that's part of what was captured in some of the other slides, if you go on to the...
Yeah, when we get to the end. But Steve makes a good point, is setting the tone.
Yeah.
How to word this could... but is definitely applicable, yeah, I get it, to mitigation approaches for the Grand Challenge. Is that all right, Steve? I mean, I think it's actually applicable, you know, it could definitely be applicable for the, and, yeah, and this area, see, there's distinction here is, because this concept of this cosmic billiards is kinetic impactor on a grand scale, but it's using the ARV as that kinetic impactor, and a couple of the presentations talk about this. This low-cost impactor is something like ISIS or some L-Cross derived or other spacecraft. So there's a difference, because when we got the proposals, there were these groupings, and that's why we grouped them into these areas.
One R there in ARM, you don't have the reference mission.
Well, okay, so, yeah, all right, we'll go that way. We keep adding letters to the acronyms left and right, so.
I was trying to think about whether it should be even strong. I mean, you could say that, in general, kinetic impactors are a key element in any mitigation toolbox of techniques or something. I mean, that it's hard to imagine if we really had a problem that we wouldn't, you know, seriously consider doing an impactor. And so getting some sort of demonstration out there, I don't know.
How about this? Key, what word did you use, Tim?
Key element.
Key element. We'll be all right. Key element applicable to mitigation approaches for the grand challenge, but probably only applicable to at the end of the Pick Up a Rock mission for the ARM. Does that turn it around and make it a little bit stronger? And again, this is a consensus of our group, so there might be people outside of this group that disagree, but.
Wouldn't it be more appropriate to just say that it's only applicable for the Pick Up a Rock mission? Because it's not applicable at all to the other mission. And the way that's worded doesn't exactly convey that.
Yeah, so, yeah, I think that's true. I like to sometimes use weasel words, because when you get in definitive stuff, you get in trouble, but.
Well, okay, maybe you could find a small one with a satellite and hit the satellite or something, but that seems like, you know.
Yeah.
Well, there's been this thought that you could go somewhere else on the way, and if you have enough time, then sure. We probably don't have that much time, but in principle, you could do 2 rendezvous.
Right. So that's the good point. That's probably why I put probably there. There are some situations that we've considered, but their likelihood is small.
Yeah.
So
what that would mean is that. Well, let me give you an example. That's actually, Tim, that's not the one, because you would still be doing the kinetic impact with the ARV.
No.
No?
With the low-cost guy.
Use the microphone.
So there's the end of mission ARV impact scenario, but that's kind of not very interesting, because you still have to observe it with somebody else.
Oh, okay.
So this would be the idea that you know, you don't care if you get back to the Earth until the late 2020s, and you still launch early enough to go rendezvous with somebody. Somebody comes in and whacks it. You play other games with it. Then you go on and grab a small rock and bring it back.
Right.
I mean,
okay.
It's complete small. Not highly likely, but okay.
Or another one could be at end of mission for the find a small one or grab a small one, would be to come back out of cislunar space, and then maybe we have this, you know, the concept is that we may repurpose the SEP system. The instruments are an issue because they're basically now covered by the asteroid, but so let's leave it at probably.
Yeah.
That's why I always put weasel words, because creative engineers can come up with some way of doing something that we can't think of right now in the room. Go ahead, Brian.
You know, the term key element, I just like to point out that kinetic impactors are really hard to do well, because the delta V tends not to be along the direction of motion, and cross-track motion, as we heard many times yesterday, you know, is not very helpful. So
well, but that's not necessarily true. Well,
it's not necessarily true, but unless you go out and go around Jupiter and get into a retrograde orbit, it's very hard to get extremely high velocities along track compared to the ion beam deflection.
Yeah, but hold on, but that's.
Well, what do you mean by extremely high? But if you look,
Yes.
okay, well, let me, okay.
Go ahead and finish up.
Just let me finish the point, which is that the ion beam deflection, as Brophy, I think, said yesterday, gives you like 30 kilometers a second with essentially all of your propellant load.
Right.
And you do give up this factor of 2, that you have a beam that shines on the asteroid and you have another beam that shines out into space. So that is a penalty, but when you look at the difficulty of getting an equivalent velocity, 30 kilometers a second, down track, relative velocity. So now, Tim, and you and the other dynamics guys can tell me that you have a way to get 30 kilometers a second of down track.
Can I field that real quick? Okay, so there's a key element with respect to all of these slow-acting techniques, and that's warning time. If we have a very short warning time event, those fall off the table, as Bongwei showed us. Additionally, when you get very close to the time of impact, directing that change in velocity or momentum along the velocity direction is not necessarily, and in general, is not the way you want to do it. There are particular out-of-plane impacts that you would want to do for a very short warning time, where you're not worried about changing the orbital elements. You're really worried about the long-term propagation of orbital elements. You're really worried about getting the dang thing from hitting the Earth or hitting a keyhole immediately.
Is that the point you were making?
Use the microphone, guys, please.
Thanks, Bob.
The ion beam deflection thing is something that is new enough that it isn't well established in our thought, and I think that some of what you say is correct, but it's also true that you have to rendezvous first and you have to have enough time to do stuff. And so I think that maybe key element is too strong, maybe important element is more, or I don't know. I take your point. Some of what you're saying is true. It's all true. It's just how relevant it is.
I think we have to close our discussion.
Yeah.
But I want to say that I agree with that. It is a key element. The kinetic impact technology is the key element. It's a key element. It's a crucial element for any missions. We are not arguing whether gravity tractor ion beam is better than kinetic impact or any other. We should not be wasting our time on talking that issue.
To be removed. I just said people need to be clear on this issue.
Okay. We will have Jeff Landis calling in soon, so.
Yeah. Hello, is anybody there?
Yeah, hey Jeff, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Hey, first time this actually worked.
Yay.
Dialed in yesterday, but had a lot of problems. Yeah, sorry, I've been listening for the last half hour and trying to get through. It's actually very confusing here because the Ustream is about 15 seconds behind.
Oh, yes, we probably still have that delay. So Jeff, what's your comment as you come into the session here? And I'll slowly flip through charts. That's going to be unfortunate for the folks online if we're flipping around.
Yeah, I had some comments a little bit on the earlier ideas, but I think mostly you've sort of moved on to other things. So maybe I should just stay silent here and listen some more.
Where was he?
Jeff, do you have any specific comments that you'd like to make anyway? As basically, is your concept well represented?
I'm trying to find it here. Oh, there it is.
I think it is adequately represented. I should have probably tweaked the wording about saying going to the stable Lagrange points. Obviously, you don't just park in the stable Lagrange points. They're actually just windows to sort of the interplanetary slingshot between translunar space and interplanetary space.
Okay. So in the interest of time, I think, were we okay with that last slide on the kinetic impactor?
Yes.
Yeah, I think we're fine.
Steve's got his finger
I
up.
do have to say, listening to these, I'm very dubious about the gravity tractor idea. That's an awfully weak force that you're using there. I'm not sure why people are taking that seriously.
Well, again, Jeff, I think the new approach to the gravity tractor is this enhanced gravity tractor with mass augmentation that really changes the effective time period of that approach and possibly makes it valuable for certain types of deflection opportunities. And again, depending on how much mass you can augment, it could become substantial, as Josh Hopkins showed yesterday.
You can't really rendezvous with and land on an asteroid.
Say that again, Jeff?
It seems to be solving a problem that arguably doesn't even exist.
So we don't, can you explain that, Jeff?
Well, it's solving the problem, how do you affect an asteroid without actually touching the asteroid? And I'm saying, well, why bother? It's an argument that says it is so hard to land on an asteroid, move an asteroid, push an asteroid, or even de-spin an asteroid that we have to be able to do these without touching it. And I just don't think that that's true. I don't think that there's a good argument that says that you have to move an asteroid without actually being in contact with it.
Yeah, it's not that you have to, it's just one option, and the issue is if you provide a continuous force, a continuous touching, then you're subject to the rotational period and the motion of the asteroid to apply the delta V in the right direction. So,
well,
I think...
I'm not sure that is a problem even if you can't derotate an asteroid, but if you can move an asteroid, you can certainly stop it from rotating. It